Tay turned to Science Officer Deho, who was looking at information on his screen. "What do we know about them?" he asked. Deho touched his screen and showed Tay some charts. "They are very smart, maybe smarter than humans in some ways. They can feel what others are feeling without being told. But their bodies are very weak. They have no way to fight or protect themselves." Tay nodded slowly. The sylphids were beautiful, but they seemed too fragile for the dangers of space. One of them flew closer to the glass, looking at Tay with large eyes that seemed full of hope and fear. "How bad is the problem on their planet?" Tay asked. "Very bad," said Deho. "Their sun is getting hotter. In 5 years, their world will be too hot for them to live on. They need a new home." The two men watched as more officials from different planets entered the big meeting room. The Meridians came first, tall blue beings with 4 arms and heads, full of computer parts. They were known for their amazing technology. After them came the Taurans, huge and strong with thick skin that could stop most weapons. Last were the Vesperians, who looked almost human except for their silver eyes that never seemed to blink. They were famous for winning every war they had ever fought. "The meeting will start soon," said Deho. "All the big powers are here." In the center of the room, a hologram appeared showing the sylphid world. It was once beautiful with blue oceans and green lands, but now large areas were turning brown and dry. The sylphids gathered around the image, some touching it sadly as if saying goodbye. The leader of the Confederation, a tall Vesperian named Koroth, spoke first. "We are here to decide who will take in the sylphids. Their world is dying. They need protectors." Tay noticed how Koroth said protectors with a small smile, as if the idea was funny. The sylphids were seen as weak by most of the galaxy. Taking them in would be like adopting helpless children. "The Meridians have considered this matter," said their leader, her voice cold and mechanical. "We find no benefit in this arrangement. The sylphids cannot help build our technology or fight in our defense forces." The Tauran leader stomped his foot, making the floor shake. "We are warriors. What use are beings who cannot fight? They would only get in our way." The Vesperian representatives simply shook their heads without speaking. They did not even think the sylphids were worth discussing. One by one, each powerful race in the galaxy said no. Some were polite about it, others were not. But the answer was always the same. No one wanted the weakest species in the galaxy. The sylphids huddled together in the middle of the room, their light growing dimmer with each rejection. They did not argue or beg. They simply waited, their wings drooping with sadness. Commander Tay felt anger growing inside him. He had seen this before. The strong ignored the weak, even when helping would cost them almost nothing. He looked at the Earth representatives sitting quietly at their small table. Humans were still new to space travel. They had only joined the Confederation 30 years ago, and many older races still looked down on them. Captain Sunmi Kim, the head of Earth's delegation, had been silent during the meeting. Now she stood up. She was not tall or impressive looking, but her voice was clear and strong. "Earth will take in the sylphids," she said. The room went completely quiet. Then, slowly, the silence was broken by sounds of surprise and disbelief. "You? Humans?" asked the Meridian leader. "Your species can barely protect yourselves. You have the smallest fleet in the Confederation." The Tauran leader laughed, a sound like rocks falling down a mountain. "This is a joke. You cannot even defend your own colonies without our help." Sunmi waited until they finished. She stood straight, looking much taller than she really was. "We have room on our world. We have the resources, and we have the will." "But why?" asked Koroth, truly confused. "The sylphids cannot help you. They bring nothing of value." "Not everything is about getting something in return," Sunmi said. "Sometimes you help because it's right." Tay watched as the sylphids began to glow brighter. They moved toward the human delegation, their wings beating faster. "This is foolishness," said the Vesperian diplomat sitting next to Koroth. "Humans are barely accepted in interstellar society. Why would they take on the galaxy's weakest species?" Sunmi smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the kind of smile that said she knew something the others did not. Because everyone deserves a home. As she spoke, a small sylphid flew to her and hovered near her shoulder. It made a soft sound like singing. and for a moment, Sunmi's eyes seemed to glow with the same light as the sylphid. Tae felt a strange feeling, like something important had just happened. He looked at Daeho, who was watching the humans and sylphids with great interest. "I think," Daeho said quietly, "we may have just witnessed the birth of something new." Neither of them knew how right he was, or how this simple act of kindness would one day change the balance of power in the entire galaxy. Dr. June Park leaned forward in his chair, eyes fixed on the brain scans floating above his desk. The colors swirled and pulsed, showing something no human scientist had ever seen before. For 6 months, the sylphids had lived quietly among humans, their small, glowing bodies now a common sight in parks and research centers across Earth. But what was happening inside human brains when they spent time with the aliens was anything but ordinary. "This is amazing," Dr. Park whispered, pointing to a particular pattern on the scan. "Look at the neural pathways here." His research partner, Dr. Min, nodded as she adjusted the holographic display. She was younger than Dr. Park, but just as dedicated to understanding the strange bond forming between humans and their new alien guests. "The connection is getting stronger each week," she said. "At first we thought it was just basic empathy, but this is much deeper." The lab was crowded with other scientists, all eager to see the latest results. Dr. Park stood up and addressed the group. "What we're seeing is completely new," he explained, using simple words so everyone could understand. "When a human and sylphid spend time together, their brains begin to sync up. The human brain grows new connections, and the sylphid's mind adjusts to match." Dr. Min tapped her screen, bringing up 2 brain scans side by side. "This is Taewon's brain before he met his sylphid partner," she said, pointing to the left image. "And this is his brain now, after 3 months. See how different it is? The areas for sensing danger and making quick decisions are much more active." A scientist from the back of the room raised her hand. "But what does this mean for humans? Is it dangerous?" Dr. Park shook his head. "Not dangerous, but definitely life-changing. The sylphid shares its ability to sense emotions and predict actions. The human shares physical strength and decision-making. Together they become something new, something better than either one alone." Far away from the lab in Seoul, this bond was being tested in ways no one had expected. Yoonji Kim stood on the far edge of a large ocean platform, carefully collecting water samples. All around her, the sea stretched to the horizon, blue and peaceful. Her sylphid companion, Irie, hovered nearby, its small body glowing bright in the afternoon sun. "I think we have enough samples now," Yoonji said, placing the last tube in her bag. "Let's head back to the lab." Irie made a soft humming sound that Yoonji had come to recognize as agreement. The small alien followed her as she walked back toward the main research building that rose from the water on tall metal legs. Suddenly, Irie's glow changed from blue to red. The sylphid darted in front of Yoonji's face, its wings beating fast. "What's wrong?" Yoonji asked. But even as she spoke, she felt something strange, a tingling at the back of her neck, a sense that something bad was about to happen. She turned, round slowly, and saw a small boat approaching the platform. It wasn't one of the research vessels. It was moving too fast, and the men on board were wearing masks. "Pirates," Yoonji whispered. She had heard about attacks on research stations before, but she never thought it would happen here. She reached for her radio, but before she could call for help, a strange feeling washed over her. It was like her mind had suddenly expanded. She could sense everything around her, the position of every person on the platform, the location of every door and hallway, the fastest routes to safety. Irie was now glowing so brightly that the light hurt Yoonji's eyes. The sylphid pressed closer to her, and as it did, Yoonji felt a wave of calm replace her fear. "We need to warn the others," she said. Without waiting for a response, she started running toward the main building. But she wasn't running like normal. Her movements were smooth and precise. She knew exactly where to place each foot, how to balance her body, when to speed up and when to slow down. Inside the lab, scientists were working, unaware of the danger. Yoonji burst through the door. I'll expand the first part of the story into a longer narrative of about 900 words in simple English, using third-person style without headings. Commander Tai watched the small beings with clear wings move around nervously in the meeting room. He had been in space for 20 years, but he had never seen anything like the sylphids before. They glowed softly in the dim light of the giant spaceship, their thin bodies almost see-through. "Pirates are coming," she announced. "We have about 2 minutes." The other researchers looked up in surprise, but something in Yunji's voice made them take her seriously. They began shutting down equipment and heading for the emergency exits. Yunji felt a new sensation through her connection with Eerie. The pirates were already inside the building. They were coming up the stairs, armed. And dangerous. "Not that way," she called to a group heading for the main exit. "They're already there, follow me." Without questioning how she knew this, the team followed Yunji as she led them through a maze of hallways. Twice she stopped them just before they would have run into the armed men. Each time she found another path, as if she could see through walls. When they reached a secure room with a heavy door, Yunji ushered everyone inside. She was the last to enter, and as she did, 2 pirates appeared at the end of the hallway. "There they are," one shouted, raising his gun. Time seemed to slow. "Down." Yunji saw the path of the bullet before it was fired. She moved to the side, faster than she had ever moved before, and slammed the door shut, just as the shot hit where she had been standing. Inside the safe room, everyone stared at her in amazement. Irie hovered above her shoulder, its glow now returning to a calm blue. "How did you do that?" asked one of the senior scientists. "How did you know they were coming? How did you move so fast?" Yunji looked at Eerie and smiled. "I'm not sure exactly, I just knew." 3 days later, in a secure military facility, General Han watched the security footage for the 5th time. The video showed Yunji moving with impossible speed and precision, avoiding danger as if she could see the future. "Play it again," he ordered, and the tech officer rewound the footage. "This is beyond anything we expected," said the general too. The government officials gathered in the room. "When we agreed to take in the sylphids, we thought we were just giving them a new home. We never imagined this." On the screen, they watched as Yunji led the research team to safety, always one step ahead of the pirates. "What exactly are we seeing here?" asked a woman in a dark suit. "The beginning of something new," replied the general, "something that could change everything." In his lab in Seoul, Dr. Park was reaching the same conclusion. The latest scans showed the bond between humans and sylphids growing stronger each day. What had started as a simple act of kindness, offering a home to the galaxy's weakest species, was becoming something far more significant. "The sylphids were never weak," he told Dr. Min as they reviewed the data. "They were just waiting for the right partners." Colonel Hyun stood tall at the edge of the training field, his face showing no emotion, as he watched the teams move through the obstacle course. It had been 1 year since the first sylphids had bonded with humans, and what he was seeing now still amazed him. A human soldier climbed a wall in seconds, moving as if she knew exactly where each handhold would be. Her sylphid partner flew above her, its small body glowing bright blue. "Impressive, isn't it?" Colonel Hyun said to the visitors standing beside him. These were important people from the Confederation, the group that ruled most of the galaxy. They had come to see if the stories they had heard were true. The tallest visitor, a blue-skinned Meridian with computer parts built into his head, watched with narrow eyes. "How is this possible? 6 months ago, human soldiers were average at best." Colonel Hyun allowed himself a small smile. "The empathic link changes everything. When a human and sylphid bond, they share their strengths. The sylphid can feel what will happen before it does. It shares this knowledge with its human partner. The human provides the physical action." On the field, another team was moving through a section filled with hidden traps. The human soldier, a young man named Han, moved with incredible speed, never stepping on a trap even though he couldn't possibly see them. "They're cheating," said a large Tauran official, his thick skin rippling with anger. "The sylphids must be telling them where the traps are." "That's exactly the point," said Colonel Hyun. "That's how the partnership works. The sylphids sense things we cannot. We do things they cannot. Together we become something new." Near the group of officials, a small sylphid named Lei hovered nervously. Unlike most sylphids who stayed close to their human partners, Lei worked as a representative for his kind in official meetings. His wings moved faster when the Tauran spoke harshly. "On our homeworld, We were thinkers and artists, Lei said, in a soft voice that somehow carried to everyone. We created beautiful things, but we could not protect them. With humans, we have found partners who value what we offer. The Confederation officials looked at each other with worried expressions. One of them, a silver-eyed Vesperian known for his military skills, held a datapad showing the results of recent training exercises. The numbers were clear. Human Sylphid teams, now called Guardians, were performing better than the best Tauran warriors and Vesperian tacticians. This partnership was supposed to save a weak species from dying out, said the Meridian diplomat, quietly. Not create the most effective fighting force in the galaxy. Colonel Hyun pretended not to hear this comment, but he knew the truth of it. No one had expected this outcome when Earth had offered to take in the homeless Sylphids. It was supposed to be a simple act of kindness. Now it was changing the balance of power in the galaxy. Would you like to see the combat simulation now? Colonel Hyun asked. Without waiting for an answer, he led the group to a large building at the edge of the training grounds. Inside, teams of Guardians were preparing for a mock battle. Each human wore light body armor, while their Sylphid partners hovered close by, their glow changing colors as they communicated silently with their partners. Today's exercise simulates defending a settlement from attackers, Colonel Hyun explained. The red team will play the role of invaders. The blue team will defend. The simulation began, and the officials watched in silence as the Guardians moved with incredible coordination. They didn't need to speak to each other. Each one seemed to know exactly what the others would do before they did it. This is disturbing, the Vesperian official finally said. Your species was not known for military excellence before. Now you move like you can see the future. Not the future, corrected Colonel Hyun. Just possibilities. The Sylphids sense them, we act on them. As the simulation ended with a clear victory for the defenders, an alarm sounded through the facility. Colonel Hyun's communicator beeped urgently. He listened for a moment, then turned to the visitors with a serious face. It seems we have a real situation developing. A Confederation outpost at the edge of our space is under attack. The officials looked surprised. By whom? Asked the Meridian. A species called the Vex, said Colonel Hyun. They've been testing our borders for months now. Small raids, nothing major, until today. The Vesperian official's silver eyes widened. The Vex are dangerous. They've destroyed 3 minor species colonies in the past year. Even our forces have trouble with them. Colonel Hyun nodded. That's why we're sending a Guardian response team. The officials followed him to the command center, where they watched on large screens as a ship filled with human Sylphid teams launched toward the threatened outpost. The journey would take hours, but they could monitor the situation through long-range sensors. The outpost was a small research station with only basic defenses. When the Vex ships appeared, black, sharp-edged vessels that looked like hunting animals, the people at the outpost had sent out a desperate call for help. By the time the Guardian ship arrived, 2 Vex vessels had already attached to the station, and warriors were cutting their way in. The officials watched with concern as the Guardian teams prepared to fight. They are outnumbered 3-1, said the Tauran observer. Even with their special abilities, they cannot win. But as the battle began, it became clear that numbers weren't everything. The Guardians moved as if they could see through walls, always one step ahead of the Vex warriors. When a Vex set a trap, the Guardians avoided it. When the Vex prepared an ambush, the Guardians were ready. Within an hour, the battle was over. The Vex retreated to their ships and fled. The outpost was saved, with only minor injuries among the defenders and station personnel. In the command center, the officials were silent for a long time. This changes everything, the Meridian diplomat finally said. Humans were barely considered a military power before. Now with the Sylphids, now we are Guardians, said Colonel Hyun simply, and we will protect the peace of the Confederation, whether you trust us or not. As the officials left that day, they carried with them reports that would shock the highest levels of the Confederation government. What had begun as an act of kindness, humans taking in the galaxy's weakest species, had evolved into something no one had expected, a fighting force unlike any the galaxy had seen before. And on the borders of Confederation space, the Vex were gathering in greater numbers, preparing for what would become the greatest test the new Guardians would face. The warning alarms blared through the Confederation Central Command, their harsh sound echoing off the metal walls. Emergency lights flashed red, turning faces strange colors as officials rushed to their stations. No one had expected the Vex attack to be so large, so well planned. Admiral Chun, the highest-ranking Vesperian military leader, stared at the large display showing the invasion. Red dots representing Vex ships were pushing into Confederation space from 3 different directions at once. "How did they get past our early warning systems?" he demanded, his silver eyes reflecting the red emergency lights. "They use some kind of new technology to hide their ships," replied a nervous aide. "By the time we detected them, they were already attacking our outer colonies." Reports streamed in from across the galaxy, all telling the same story. Vex forces were brutal and efficient. They moved like they knew exactly where Confederation defenses would be weakest. On planet after planet, Confederation forces were being pushed back or destroyed. In the great meeting hall of the Confederation Council, emergency lights cast long shadows as leaders from all major species gathered. The mood was dark with fear and anger. "This is the worst attack in 50 years, said the Meridian High Counselor, her blue face looking pale. "We have lost contact with 7 colony worlds already. Our battleships are engaging the enemy near the Procyon system," reported the Tauran war chief, his massive hands clenched into fists. "But we are outnumbered." The leaders argued about what to do next. Some wanted to pull all forces back to defend the core worlds. Others insisted they should launch a major counterattack. As they debated, more bad news arrived. Another confederation. Fleet had been destroyed. 2 more worlds were under attack. In the middle of this chaos, Admiral Siok, Earth's representative to the Defense Council, stood up. She was a small woman with short grey hair, but her voice was strong and clear. "The Vex have studied our traditional forces and know how to defeat them," she said. "But there is one force they have not been able to overcome, the Guardian Corps." The room grew quiet. Everyone knew about the human Sylphid teams that had been formed since Earth took in the Sylphids 2 years ago. Reports had shown that these Guardians had successfully defended against smaller Vex attacks on the borders of human space. "We propose deploying our Guardian Corps as your primary strike force against the Vex," Admiral Siok continued. "They have proven effective in every engagement so far." The Tauran war chief snorted in disbelief. "Humans were barely considered a military power before the Sylphids," he objected. "Now you think you can save us all?" Admiral Siok smiled slightly. "Perhaps that was your mistake," she replied calmly. "You evaluated species in isolation, never considering the power of true symbiosis, 2 species working together as one." After hours of heated debate, the Council finally agreed. They were running out of options. The Guardian Corps would be given authority to lead the fight against the Vex. Within days, human ships carrying Guardian teams headed toward the front lines. Commander Jin, one of the first humans to form a deep bond with a Sylphid, led the largest group. His Sylphid partner, Nari, was always close by, their minds linked in ways that scientists still didn't fully understand. As their ship approached the Vex-occupied world of Nerin Prime, Jin gathered his teams for final instructions. "This will be the biggest test we have faced," he told them. "The people of this world have been under Vex control for 2 weeks. Our job is to free them and push the Vex back." The Guardians nodded, each human standing with their Sylphid partner nearby. They didn't need many words. Through their mental links, they already shared a deeper understanding than words could express. The battle began as soon as their ships entered orbit. Vex defense platforms opened fire, filling space with deadly energy beams. But the Guardian pilots moved their ships in unexpected ways, avoiding shots that should have hit them. On the ground, the fighting was fierce. The Vex were tall insect-like beings with natural armor and powerful weapons. They fought in perfect formation, using tactics that had defeated Confederation forces across the galaxy. But the Guardians fought differently. They didn't use standard military formations. Each team moved independently, yet somehow they all worked together perfectly. When the Vex set up ambushes, the Guardians knew not to go there. When the Vex tried to surround them, The Guardians were already moving to safer positions. Commander Jin and Nari led a team deep into the main Vex stronghold. Jin moved through the dark corridors with perfect confidence, as if he could see in the dark. In a way he could, through Nari's senses. The Sylphid could feel the presence of Vex warriors before they appeared, giving Jin just enough time to prepare. After 3 days of fighting, the impossible happened. The Vex forces on Narration Prime surrendered. It was the first major defeat they had suffered since the invasion began. In the captured Vex command center, Jin faced the Vex commander who had been in charge of the planet's occupation. The alien was tall and dangerous-looking, even in defeat. Its hard shell scarred from many battles. "How did you defeat us?" the Vex commander hissed, its voice like dry leaves blowing across stone. "We studied all known Confederation species. We prepared for each weakness." Jin looked at Nari, who hovered near his shoulder, glowing with a soft blue light. "But you didn't prepare for us," Jin said. "We are something new." The Vex's compound eyes seemed to narrow. "What are you?" "We are Guardians," Jin replied simply. News of the victory spread quickly through the Confederation. Planets that had given up hope now saw a chance to fight back. The Guardian Corps expanded its operations, launching attacks on Vex strongholds across the galaxy, and everywhere the story was the same. Where traditional Confederation forces had failed, the Guardians succeeded, not through better weapons or stronger ships, but through their perfect coordination and ability to adapt to Vex tactics. The Sylphid's empathic abilities allowed them to sense Vex plans before they happened, while the humans' natural protective instincts made them fight with incredible determination. In the Confederation Council chamber, Admiral Seok presented a report on the latest victories. The room was no longer filled with emergency lighting. Instead, it glowed with the calm blue light of peacetime. "The Vex are retreating from 3 more systems," she announced. "Their largest fleet has pulled back to the edge of known space." The council members, who had once looked down on humans as minor players in galactic politics, now listened with respect as she outlined the next phase of operations. After the meeting, the Meridian High Counselor approached Admiral Seok privately. "We were wrong about humans," she admitted, "and we were wrong about the Sylphids. We thought they were the weakest species in the galaxy." Admiral Seok nodded. "Strength comes in many forms," she said, "and sometimes the greatest strength comes from working together." As she spoke, a small Sylphid flew into the room and hovered near her shoulder. It glowed with a warm golden light that seemed to brighten the entire chamber. The great glass towers of the Confederation capital glowed in the early morning light. For weeks, the beautiful city had been under attack by the Vex. Their black ships filled the sky like angry storm clouds, but today would decide everything. High above the city, thousands of ships gathered. It was the largest force of Guardians ever brought together in one place. Every available human Sylphid team had been called to defend the heart of the Confederation. In the lead ship, General Jin looked out at the massive Vex fleet approaching. Their ships moved in perfect lines, like a giant machine. Beside him, his Sylphid partner Nari glowed with a deep blue light. After years together, their minds were so closely linked that they rarely needed to speak aloud. "They think they have us trapped," Jin said quietly. Nari's glow pulsed slightly. "They do not understand what we have become." The command center of the ship was filled with other Guardians, each human with their Sylphid partner nearby. They all felt the weight of this moment. If they failed here, the Confederation would fall. Jin stepped forward to address them. "Today we face the main Vex force. They have studied our tactics. They will try new approaches, but what they cannot understand is the bond we share." As he spoke, the Sylphids in the room began to glow brighter, their light merging together, until the whole room seemed filled with a blue haze. Through their bond, each human could feel the determination of the others. No words were needed. The battle began with a massive attack from the Vex. Their ships fired energy weapons that could cut through normal shields. But the Guardian ships moved in ways that seemed impossible, always just ahead of the Vex targeting systems. On the command ship, Jin and Nari directed the battle, but they did more than give orders. Through their deep bond with other Guardians, they shared a larger awareness of the entire battlefield. Third group, Move to Sector 4, Jin said calmly. The Vex are about to shift their attack there. No. Sooner had he spoken than the Vex ships changed formation, just as he had predicted. But the Guardian ships were already moving to meet them. For hours, the battle raged around the capital. The Vex tried every trick and trap they had used to defeat other Confederation forces. But against the Guardians, nothing worked. It was as if the humans and sylphids could see the future. What the Vex could not understand was that this was exactly what was happening. The sylphids' natural ability to sense emotions and intentions linked with human decision-making created a fighting force that could adapt instantly to any threat. As the day went on, the Vex began to lose ships faster and faster. Their perfect formations broke apart as Guardian teams pushed through their lines. By evening, it was clear that the tide had turned. The Vex Supreme Commander sent a final message before their retreat. We do not understand how you defeated us, but we recognize your strength. We will not return to Confederation space. In the days that followed, celebrations filled every world in the Confederation. The Vex, who had seemed unstoppable, had been driven away. And everyone knew who had saved them, the same humans and sylphids that most of the galaxy had once looked down upon. 1 month after the battle, the Confederation Council met in its great chamber. Representatives from every major species gathered to discuss the future. The Meridian High Counselor, her blue skin shining in the light, stood to address the assembly. We must speak honestly about our mistakes, she said. We judged the sylphids as the weakest among us. We saw humans as unremarkable newcomers. We failed to see that together they would become our salvation. Murmurs of agreement filled the room. Even the proud Taurans nodded their massive heads. Therefore, continued the High Counselor, we propose that the Guardian Corps become the official peacekeeping force of the Confederation, and that humans and sylphids be given full voice in all future Council decisions. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in Confederation history, a new kind of force would protect the peace, one based not on the strength of a single powerful species, but on the partnership between two. Back on Earth, in the Green Hills, that had once been the first sylphid refugee settlement, a special ceremony was taking place. A large monument was being unveiled, commissioned by the Confederation Council itself. The monument showed a human hand, open and strong, with a sylphid resting upon it. The sylphid was not trapped or owned, but choosing to be there, its wings open as if ready to fly at any moment. The statue was made of a special crystal that caught the sunlight and broke it into thousands of colorful beams. General Jin, now also serving as Earth's representative to the Council, stood beside the monument with Nari hovering near his shoulder. Before them was a crowd of thousands, humans and sylphids together, along with visitors from every Confederation species. The Vex thought they understood strength, Jin told the crowd. They prepared for weapons, for technology, for physical might. They never prepared for compassion. As he spoke, Nari flew closer, the sylphid's glow brightening. When Nari spoke, the voice seemed to come from everywhere at once, like music on the wind. On my world, we were philosophers who could not defend our ideas, Nari said. On Earth we found not masters, but equals who valued what we offered. Together, their words seemed to touch something deep in everyone present. Many of the humans had tears in their eyes. The sylphids glowed with colors of joy and hope. In the months that followed, something remarkable began to happen throughout the galaxy. Other species started to look for partners of their own. The Meridians, once cold and logical, found that working closely with the artistic Pelian species enhanced their technological creativity. The strong Taurans discovered that partnering with the gentle Lurans gave them new insight into peaceful solutions. The human sylphid guardians became not just defenders, but teachers, showing how true cooperation could work. They traveled to worlds across the Confederation, helping species that had once been enemies find ways to work together. On a quiet evening, 1 year after the Great Battle, Jin and Nari stood on a high balcony overlooking the lights of a human city. Above them, the stars shone bright and peaceful. Do you ever think about how differently things might have turned out? Jin asked. If we hadn't offered your people a home? Nari's glow shifted to a thoughtful purple. Perhaps the universe knew what it was doing. Perhaps we were always meant to find each other. Jin smiled at this idea. The weakest species and the unremarkable newcomers. Who would have thought we'd change the galaxy? Not weak, Nari corrected gently. Just different. Not unremarkable, just unfinished. Jin nodded, understanding completely through their shared bond. Together they looked up at the stars, seeing not the vast emptiness that had once frightened both their kinds, but a universe full of possibilities for connection. What had begun as a simple act of kindness, humans adopting the galaxy's supposedly weakest species, had revealed a profound truth. True strength comes not from standing alone but from standing together.